I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Velocity Work Podcast, episode number 49. This podcast is for attorneys who are running their own firms. We explore tactics, tools, and stories related to pushing past simply lawyering well and into building a successful firm. Working in your firm and working on your business are two very different things. This podcast focuses on the latter. Hey. Welcome back to this week's episode. So excited that you're here. Excited to have you. I am bringing to you today a topic that I talk about a lot with individuals, in coaching sessions or in groups. I've talked about this with mastery groups. There's been many instances, and actually I talk to my friends about it as well, my entrepreneurial friends. And that is this whole idea, this whole concept that there is pain involved with anything worth doing. Now, when I say that, what you'll probably think about is, yes, of course, there's, similar to no pain, no gain, or similar to, or just this idea that there must be pain involved in order to get it. Yes. But that's not exactly what I mean by this. The point I want to make today, and that I want you to think about in your own life, in your own world, in your own firm, is that there's pain involved with anything worth doing. However, whether you go after that thing that's worth doing or not, it doesn't matter. If there's something that's worth doing, if there's a goal that you have or a desire that you have that you say you want to go after, if you go after that thing, there will be some pain involved. We will talk about that. And if you don't go after that thing, there will be some pain involved. And so what I want you to think about for yourself is that there are things that, we talk about delaying gratification, and the reason that you want to delay gratification, and it can be sometimes very uncomfortable to do that, but the payoff is that you get to the result that you wanted to get. However, if you don't delay gratification, if you don't really step into doing the things that you need to do in order to achieve the result that you think is worth achieving, then you may be able to not experience any pain or discomfort at that time, but there will come a point where you didn't reach the result. You didn't create the result that you wanted to create, and there will be pain involved in that. Just the discomfort and the potentially beating yourself up and all the, I think, rationalizing and justifying why we didn't do something, just making excuses for things, that's never coming from a place that's like a comfortable, pain-free place. That's always coming from this. There is some pain involved in that, some emotional discomfort involved in the fact that you didn't do what you said you were going to do, or you gave up early, like you quit right before you got to the result you wanted to create. And so the crazy thing about when we have our mind set to something, or we decide like, I want X, and you do the hard work to go after it, there's some major discomfort involved in order to keep showing up and keep doing the things to honor the commitment, right? To get to the thing that you want to get to. And if you don't do that, and you just float and you indulge and you don't actually do the things that are required, which are uncomfortable, you're going to get to a place where it's just painful that you haven't achieved the thing that you wanted to achieve because you could have, but you didn't. And that sucks. That feeling state sucks. We've all been there. So this idea that there's pain involved with anything worth doing, it's kind of crazy because you can't get away from the pain. You either experience the pain up front and achieve the result that you thought was worth doing, worth going after, or you don't experience the pain up front. You decide to not do the things, not move through the discomfort and do the things, and you don't end up at the result, and that's painful. So I know I'm kind of repeating myself here, but I really want this to hit home, and I want you to think about your own world, your own firm, your own life with this. Now, just to talk a little bit deeper in some examples. This can apply to athletics, right? Like if you're training for something or you want to train for something, a race of some sort or an event of some sort, to do that, to achieve that result of doing that race or completing that event, there is certainly this discomfort required, like physical discomfort as well as emotional discomfort. You have to overcome some of that. You have to become the kind of person that laces up their shoes and goes out the door anyway. And if you aren't that to begin with, right? Like that's just not, you haven't been training, you haven't been doing anything. And so it really is this, like, you have to really overcome that hurdle and become the kind of person that does it no matter what, because you have this event to train for. And so you do it, you do the discomfort, you show up every day, and then you're able to complete the event. Now, it's similar where, okay, so let's just say you give up. You didn't do it. You didn't make it happen. You didn't set aside time for the training. You didn't plan well enough that it made it sort of inevitable that you were going to do it. You weren't willing to experience the discomfort and do the thing anyway. So there was just a lack of commitment, right? So let's just say lack of commitment, the event date comes, the event date goes, and it just sucks. Like you should have been in that race. You should have been, like, there's no reason why you shouldn't have been there other than you just didn't get it done. You didn't go through the discomfort of achieving what you needed to achieve in order to participate in the event, right? So that's one example. Also, think about losing weight, which I know we're kind of talking about health stuff here, but it's always so easy when it comes to behavior and how you show up and how you take action and how you think about things and how you feel about things. Health and fitness is just one of the easiest things to start with. So let's talk about losing weight. If you want to lose weight or get in shape somehow, right? Like whatever that means for you, you're not necessarily training for an event, which is kind of, in my mind, that really helps me to have this sort of like thing that I'm shooting for. But a lot of people don't want to train for an event. They just want to get healthier. Okay, so then that means they need to form habits, and without some event that they're going to have to show up to, they just need to start forming good habits. Well, you can either, let's say if we're talking about losing weight, you can either make a plan, show up for that plan, really commit to losing weight, the weight that you want to lose. And you show up, you do the things you're supposed to do, and it's painful. Of course it is, right? Like that's not comfortable. What's comfortable is to go lay on the couch and watch Netflix. What's comfortable is to keep sitting in your work chair and not get up to go take a walk or to go run or to go lift weights. It's so much easier to not shift into this different way of being. And so if you do overcome that, if you do stick to your commitment, you make the plan, you show up for the plan, then it's painful, but you get your result. You lose the weight, right? Now, if you do give in to this sort of indulgence that comes up, like this feeling state that like basically you would rather be doing something else than going to work out. And so you do that other thing. You go do something else. You go sit on the couch, you stay in your work chair, you don't get up. Like there's just not a commitment to the thing that you said you wanted to do. So then actually there's some pain involved in that too, because that sucks. You guys all know what I'm talking about. Like you don't feel good about yourself. Like there's some beating yourself up that happens, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But you don't overcome anything. And then it's just so aggravating when you step on the scale and you see that things haven't budged at all, or maybe they've gone up, right? Or maybe your clothes are still not fitting or they're even tighter, right? So whatever your motivation was for losing weight, when you see the results or the consequences of not losing weight, of not following through on what you said you were going to do, it sucks. So the truth is, I'm saying this in a nice way. There's pain involved with anything worth doing. But really, I guess what I can say is anything worth doing, there's this piece of it that's going to suck. You gotta expect that. And if you at least know that going into something, it's a little bit easier. Like you get to choose when you experience the pain. When are you going to experience it up front and do what it takes to shift into a different gear, shift into a different way of operating? Or are you not going to shift And so then you choose the pain at the end of this road. You choose the pain when you don't achieve the result and when you're aggravated that you didn't achieve the result. So at some point, there's going to be a little bit of suckiness that you have to overcome. Now, let's think about your firm. Let's think about you. What do you want? What is something that you have wanted that feels like a pipe dream? That you're just like, it's possible, but you just haven't done the work to actually move towards it. So for example, I have a lot of attorneys tell me that they want more time off. They don't want to be working as much as they're working. Okay, so that's good to know. Now, whatever you do to line yourself up with that result, right? Like you'll have to think backwards and you'll have to think there are certain things that have to happen in order for me to be able to work less. So once you kind of reverse engineer and figure out what has got to happen here, then you know what you need to execute on. And I'm oversimplifying this, but you guys are totally capable. If you're listening to this, you can reverse engineer what it's going to take to get you closer and closer and closer to the thing that you want. And then it's your job to start implementing and executing, right? So, and taking action so that you can get the result. So when you say, I want more time off, you reverse engineer to figure out what has to happen in order for me to get more time off. And then it's your job to do those things. Now, there's all kinds of excuses that you can come up with. I'm too busy to do this thing that's going to get me closer to taking more time off. Maybe it's hiring someone. Maybe it's training someone. Maybe it's putting a system into place or a process into place. Maybe it's getting something organized in your office that is so chaotic and disorderly that like bringing somebody into it doesn't make any sense, right? So whatever it is that needs to happen for you, it's time to go do those things. Then you have to make a plan and you have to plan out when you're going to do these things. And then you have to show up and honor your plan. Now, there's all kinds, like I said, there's all kinds of reasons that will come up in your mind and that your brain will tell you that actually this thing over here is more important. That can wait. It's already been waiting anyway, right? So like it can wait a little longer. This thing over here is more important. Or clients, like you don't do the, episode number 46, I talked about interruptions and really like getting those in check. Take control when you have control. So let's just say interruptions are your thing. That's your problem, which so many of you I talk to, interruptions in your day are such an issue. It prevents you from being focused. It prevents you from making headway. So if that's the case, okay, you got to dial that in. You need to. And so what's interesting is that your brain will tell you when interruptions happened, oh my gosh, I have to take care of this right now. And that's not usually true. Every once in a while, that's going to be true. But most of the time, that is your brain. That's just so much easier because it's such a habit to just like put out that fire rather than saying, okay, that needs to be dealt with. But right now I'm going to do this because this is going to take me closer to my result. And that is strangely, right? It sounds so simple, but we don't do that. It takes a lot of practice. It takes accountability. There's something that is a little heavier than it seems like it would need to be to really shift into being the kind of person that honors your plan. 99% of the time, that will be 100% possible. Well, about 1% of the time, it's not. Like something will have to adjust, something will have to shift, and that's okay, right? There's a small percent, and I'm saying 1%. You get my point. Just a very small percentage. 95 to 1 to 5% of the time, it's probably not going to be, your plan can't go as perfectly as you wanted it to. And that's okay. But it's really training yourself that most of the time it can, and it's your job to stick to the plan. Plans are what make your dreams come true. And actually, no, plans are necessary. Executing the plan is what makes your dreams come true, period. So if more time off is the result that you want to create for yourself, then this is most people, and you'll probably see yourself in this, or maybe at one point in your career, you could see this for yourself. Most people keep saying that, and they keep saying that, and they keep saying it, and they keep saying it, and they just don't get there. And they make these excuses and these justifications and for why they haven't created that result for themselves. And most of the time they can't see that it's an excuse. They get defensive about it. They say, well, you don't know what my life is like. You don't know how busy I am. I'm like, yes, I do. I absolutely do. You're insanely busy. I don't need proof of that. I know that you're insanely busy. And I also know that you have total control over taking steps towards the thing that you want, no matter what. So it's just interesting when people give me these excuses. And the truth is, giving excuses, like that place where when you are operating from the place where you just spit out excuses, there's some pain involved in that. Like it may be subtle, but you don't feel good about it. You don't feel good about having to give an excuse, right? There's some piece of you that's like, dang it, right? Like, why can't I just pull it together? And instead I'm just too busy. That's what comes out of her mouth. So there's some pain involved in there, but the bigger pain is that when you do make excuses and you don't show up to honor the plan, the bigger pain is when you still have to work 6 days a week. Like 6 months later, you're still working 6 days a week. And then 6 months after that, you're still working 6 days a week. It's like, it's nuts. So that is extremely painful, because then you start experiencing more and more burnout. You get more and more resentful. You're more and more grumpy because you hate the fact that you're working 6 hours a week or 6 days a week. So it's just, of course, there's pain involved in that scenario I just painted, but also the other scenario, the other option for you is to experience the pain now, experience the pain ahead of time so that you can reach the desired result. Either way, there's pain involved. You choose when you're going to experience it. And I say, if you're going to have to experience it anyway, experience it up front so that and you'll have to go through the pain anyway, and then also get the result that you want. The other way, you're just experiencing pain and you don't get the result you want. So experience pain up front, get the result you want, or experience the pain, never get a result. It's kind of funny to think about, right? Also, when you think back to when you started your own firm, think about how hard that was. There's so many challenges. It's so painful to get going. It's just very challenging for a multitude of reasons. But also just think about, like, if you were working at a big firm before you left to start your own thing, there's so much fear involved in that. Whether you didn't experience much of it or whether you experienced a ton of it, for most people, there's some level of fear when you are jumping from getting a paycheck, right, to not getting a paycheck and just starting your own firm. And you did that for reasons. You wanted to create that result for yourself. You did it. You jumped ship and you started your own firm. You did all the things that it required for you to get to where you are now. And if you didn't do that, right, like, think about where you'd be. There, you went through the ring of fire, so to speak, to really create the result that you have today. And if you decided not to do that, right? If you decided just to stay in the job, and you just, like, there's so much, you'd be in pain right now, for sure. You left for reasons. And whether those reasons were because you were getting away from the culture that you were in the big firm, or maybe you didn't care about the culture in your big firm, but you just wanted to create your own thing. You knew you were capable, you knew it was possible for yourself, and you are the kind of person that just wanted to go do it. Either way, right, there's still this risk involved in doing it. And there's some level of pain and discomfort with taking that kind of a risk. And you did it. And look what you've created today. Is there room for improvement? Of course, there always will be. You'll never get to a point where you're like, this is just cake. I don't need to do anything else. I can just die now. No, you will always be looking for, like, the next level and tightening things up and growing in new and better ways and getting to the place where you can take more time off. Like, there's always shifting and changing and growing that you'll do. So when you think back to when you started your firm, I really want you to look at and reflect on the pain that you went through, and you were able to create the result that you have right now. And if you didn't do those things, if you didn't do what was required to get yourself to where you are now, you'd be miserable because you wouldn't have your firm, right? You'd still be in this old way of being, whether, maybe in the big firm, and it just, slowly it feels like the life is getting sucked out of you and you're not creating anything for yourself, right? It's just a paycheck. There's a culture that you have to abide by. There's all kinds of things that go with being in that kind of environment. And if you're the kind of person that wanted to leave, you're the kind of person that probably didn't make a ton of sense for in terms of fulfillment. So that's another way to sort of evaluate giving yourself a time when, like looking at a time when you've actually done this, when you've actually gone through the pain, and now you have a very specific result because of the pain that you were willing to experience. So I hope this is kind of coming full circle for you in your mind in terms of like maybe looking back and thinking of when you've done this before. Starting your own firm, certainly, but I'm sure there's other things. And you can probably think back to events you've trained for, like physical events and races and things like that. Maybe it is any other health goal that you've set that could fall under that. But anything worth doing, buying the house of your dreams or your first home, there's things that you were working towards. Having a family, right? There's all of these things you can easily think of where the pain existed and where you're glad you went through it, right? Like you can really be grateful that you went through it. There's so much learning in it. On that note, this idea of learning, anytime so I said, if you experience the pain up front, then you're going to experience pain because you can't get out of that, and you're going to create the result for yourself. But the other thing that you create is you gain all of this knowledge and you just learn so much about what it took, right? On your journey of what it took to get from point A to point B to create that result from yourself. There's so much learning in that. That is valuable. That is something to build on. That kind of lets you get to keep optimizing and climbing to your next best, your next level. And not for the sake of you're never content with where you are. You are, that's I think important to really be grateful for exactly where you are and to be able to look back and appreciate all the lessons, all the hard times, it's kind of made it all worth it, right? To be here right now. And when you think about what you want to create moving forward, having that same, it's totally possible to appreciate where you are right now and want to see what you're made of and want to kind of create that next level for yourself or for your firm. So all the learning that goes with that on that journey, it just sets you up for when you kind of get to point B and you've got all these lessons along the way. And then there's a point or a time where you're like, okay, I have another result. I want to create another result in this world, another result for myself. Well, you have all that learning and knowledge and resources that you've gained already that you can build upon. And so then you create the next level and you get all this knowledge along the way and all this experience along the way. And then it's from a place of appreciation for where you are. And then you want to see what the next level is. And you just continue to push yourself to be, to fulfill your own potential, to get closer and closer to fulfilling your potential. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're the kind of person that's interested in that. And so there's something to be said for all the learning along the way that really allows you to keep leveling up. Pretty cool to think about. There's pain involved with anything worth doing. The pain is inevitable. Are you going to experience it up front and also achieve a result? Or are you not going to experience up front? You don't get a result, and then there's pain. Okay, everyone. Hopefully that's good food for thought. I will be back here with you next week. Hi guys, it's me again. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this podcast, you probably understand that growth requires results, not just staying active. If you want to learn how to build your days around getting results, I'll show you how in this zero fluff class that I teach. Go to velocitywork.com/results for registration information. I cannot wait to see you there. If you want to hang out with us on social, come on over to Instagram. Our handle is velocity.work. And on Facebook, it's facebook.com/meetvelocitywork. Cheers, my friends, to real growth and a great life. Show notes from this episode can be found at velocitywork.com/podcast.